All Access Pete's Preseason is brought to you by these sponsors.
We're with area coaches, and yeah, I've been in the area for a long time, but this guy's been longer, and well, for better than 2 decades, been the head coach of the Greer Yellow Jackets. Will Young, so kind to join us. Will, I don't know what a football season would be like if you weren't involved, because we go back to when you were a star offensive lineman on the first of back-to-back unbeaten state champion Daniel High teams. Then it was on to Clemson, and then onward to your high school coaching career, and part of a dynamic coaching power couple for 25 or so years. Your wife has done a great job with Furman volleyball program. So that's a pretty cool dynamic there.
Wow.
Yes, we have. So I know a lot about you, but I know our viewers may not know some of the background. But you grew up in the Clemson area, and you went to Daniel High. While you were there, a guy named Alan Sitterly took over for the 1990 season, I believe it was. You guys went 13-2, and then that was your junior year.
Yeah, 1990 we were 14. We lost to Camden.
14-1.
State, yes.
14-1.
14-1. So I had to, was lucky that I never had to go to practice with Sitterly after a loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever. So
that's right.
So I'm very thankful for that.
And the final game that year in 1990 was against a legendary Camden team. It went down to the wire. It may have even gone overtime, but they had a kid named Bobby Ingram who played in the NFL, a quarterback named Kerry Hayes who played in
Sean Elliott was on the team.
Sean Elliott,
So
wow.
they had some really good players, and it was a great atmosphere. It was at the old Camden Stadium, and I can remember fans being on top of the locker room throwing dog biscuits at us, and so we enjoyed it. It was a good time. I would have liked to have to win, but Coach Sitterly made a big difference in Daniel's program and my life completely. He really changed the trajectory of where I was going as a football player. So very thankful for him.
So he was a guy who had gotten a taste of the pros, played in the old WFL for a while, did Alan Sitterly.
Yes.
Had played at NC State. You probably realize this. He once told me a story that when he was a grad assistant at NC State, one of the guys he had in his weightlifting group, because back then college programs, the grad assistants would oversee a certain group of players, was Bill Cower. Bill Cower was had to answer to Alan Sitterly one time.
Yeah.
So he went in there, and your senior year, you guys, the first of 2 back-to-back 15-0 years, you won a state title at Daniel. It was a great achievement. What was that experience like as a high schooler, an 18-year-old kid? You knew you'd be going down the road to play your college football, but what was like winning a state title as a high school player?
It was awesome. We had actually gone to the state championship my freshman year.
Yes, against Manning.
We lost on a last-second field goal.
Yep.
And so a lot of the guys that were on that first 15-0 team, we were freshmen at that time, and we got to travel, but we didn't play a lot. But we had kind of had that taste of what it was like and knew it was something we wanted to do. And we worked extremely hard to do it. Coach Sitterly made us work extremely hard. And, back then you didn't have all the regulations and all that you got now with heat and all that. And so it was a different world for sure, but a lot of great memories.
I'm not trying to drop too many names on you, but we mentioned that 1990 Camden game, and you played against a future NFL guy, Bobby Ingram. You may not realize this. In '88 against Manning, they had a guy who later made it to the major leagues with the Phillies, a running back named Glenn Murray.
Yep.
That was, and they had a really good quarterback, Andy Johnson. They had a talented team. So you got brushes with greatness throughout your high school career. You didn't even realize.
Didn't even know
at the time.
Well, we knew Bobby was going to be special.
Oh yeah.
He was really good at receiver, but he excelled in that game from my memory as a safety, and really played extremely well.
And he was as good of a center fielder as I've ever seen in high school, by the way, as well. What a player. But anyway, so now you go down the road to Clemson. Ken Hatfield was the coach. You go into a program that was still, I don't want to say reeling, but there was still that air of how things had ended with Danny Ford. And while you're at Clemson, local school, you were pulling for and that kind of thing. And what was that experience like? Because there was a coaching change during your time there.
It was interesting. I was fortunate that Larry Vanderhayden was still the offensive line coach at the time, and it was a pretty smooth transition going from Coach Sitterly to Coach Vanderhayden. They're very similar in their approach to practice and what they did. I was still the young buck when I got there, but I was probably a little arrogant, and and wound up being a backup for my freshman year, but really wanted to get on the field.
So the Clemson connection with the Young family is something I think we've got to touch on. You and I talked about it recently. Yeah. So your younger brother followed you there, and Kyle had a great career.
Yes.
You now have a nephew at Clemson. You have two in the generations ahead of you. Give me the quick background, because I'm pretty sure, and a gentleman that most people have heard of, Tim Beret, he's actually looking that up because I want to know the answer. Yeah. I think your family connections over at least, 4 generations have the most starts in Clemson history.
It probably does. My grandfather was probably the first one. He was on the 39 Cotton Bowl team.
His name?
That's Ed McClendon. And then Kyle's father-in-law played, I think, in the 60s for Frank Howard. And then, of course, I played, Kyle played, Watson's playing. And, who knows? Maybe there'll be another one down the road.
Yeah. But the first time Watson starts, I told Tim, hey, you got to point out that, this is another start for the extended Young family. Kyle was on the 95 Daniel State title team. So you guys would never have played.
94, I don't know which.
It was 95, yeah. Okay. That's when they had a kid named Kevin Breedlove on that offensive line. He was just a freshman, but I looked at.
Kevin weighs about 200 pounds now.
Is he? Yeah. So it goes.
He's lost a ton of weight.
And, back when you played, you went on to Clemson. You had a guy named Joel Holliday at Daniel who went on to Alabama. But it's just amazing what your legendary head coach, Alan Sitter, was able to create.
5 guys, all 5 of us, my senior year, played college football.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Kyle follows you to Clemson, but again, you guys never got to play with each other because of the age difference.
Had I redshirted, I think we might have crossed paths for a year. But I did come back in GA, so I was able to be around him a little bit, watch him play, and enjoy. He had a really outstanding career at Clemson and played for Bowden, and I guess he played for Coach West for a little bit too. But he had a great year, great career.
Yeah, he would have been in that crew that was kind of halfway through their career, went ahead and saw the coaching change, or maybe toward the latter. He played at least a year, maybe 2, for Tommy Bowden. Right. So you wrap up at Clemson. Was there ever an NFL? I'm trying to remember if there was a cup of coffee and a training camp.
There was some, like a free agent type deal. I really, really wanted to get into coaching. It was something I've always wanted to do. You grow up around people like Coach Ford, and you get to work with somebody like Coach Sitterly, and my grandfather was a high school football coach. The stadium at Fairfield Central was named after him. And so it was just something growing up that I really wanted to do. And I sent resumes. Back then you had to send resumes out to everybody. And Jack Crow helped me get a job at Jacksonville State, and that's where I started.
So the coaching itch, was it always going to be about high school, or did you think maybe college?
Not initially. No, I really, my route was wanting to stay in college. And so I was at Jacksonville for about a year and a half, then I came back to Clemson as a grad assistant. And it's pretty neat because when I came back to Clemson, the position I was put with was defensive backs, and which was great for an offensive lineman because it really opens up the entire playbook for you. You kind of know what's going on. You don't spend much time worrying about coverage when you're in the trenches, but that helped me out a ton. And then it was kind of a race. Michelle actually was, my wife was teaching at Greer High School for 1 year, and she did not enjoy teaching, and she took a little bit of a pay cut, went to Furman as an assistant. Then the next year she was hired as the head coach. So we just decided to run that route and stay in high school and go to high school. And so I took a job at Travelers Rest when I was 27 years old.
Remember that well.
Yes.
Yeah. You had a running back named Will Ford. You played for a coach, or you were recruited by a Coach Ford, and then and then you had a running back, Will Ford.
And he was excellent.
Yeah, and went to SC State, had a great career. Real quick on the husband-wife coaching dynamic, because in our area we have some husbands and wives who are at the same high school. But what's, and again, college volleyball and just anything NCAA is going to be a lot different than high school, although these days sometimes the lines blur. But, I mean, what's that dynamic like? How often does she come home and say, geez, we lost this match, or, man, I had a bad practice, and vice versa?
She probably does it a little more than I do.
I see.
I tend to bottle it up, and she kind of vents a little bit to me. But, it's kind of neat because we're both in the same season, so we're both in the fall, and we don't see each other for 3 or 4 months. And and that's probably why she's still married to me. But
I say the same thing about my wife. Yeah, she's great.
But I enjoy it. I enjoy, I get to go to maybe 1 or 2 volleyball games during the year, and I've actually become a volleyball fan. So
sure.
I enjoy watching her coach. And, of course, our kids have always been gym rats, either filming a football practice or helping mom pick up volleyballs. So, it's just something we've always done.
I remember, Will, it was either year 1 or year 2 when we were shooting the preview story, and I used to just go over to the coaches clinic in Greenville and set up appointments with each coach to visit me. And I think either you were late and I said, you look tired. He goes, well, I was up all night. We just had our first child. I think it was right around when you had
Our oldest son was born July 23rd. I started 2-a-days. Back then we had 2-a-days.
Yes.
So we started those right away and that same week. And Michelle started practice that same week. We were fortunate that my mom was still alive. And she would come over we lived in by Furman University at that time. She would come over and take care of the baby. And But it was a challenge there early on. We got a little smarter. So
there you go.
Our next daughter was born in June. Our next one was born in March. So we kept moving it back.
There you go. And that was like 03, right? 02, 03, 04 maybe?
That would have been 01.
01, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Right at the start of things.
You're right.
In a nutshell, 21 years in any job is something, but you're in one of the football hotbeds. You took the team to a state title game a few years back. You're always right there at the hunt. But being under that microscope, I mean, Greer High, it's one of the great jobs I know. It's one of the great football programs. Your experience at Greer High and what that's been like.
Well, when you're a coach, you try to find some place where it's important. And at Greer, it always has been. It's always been important. The community kind of rallies around it. The town's changed a little bit. We're not a little small town anymore. We've grown a lot, and so that's changed some things. But it's still a tradition-based school. It's a place where football is important. Everybody comes to the games, and the kids are fortunate to play there, and I'm fortunate to coach there.
Yeah. Well, year number 21 upcoming. I know you got some talent back. We've talked about that. And again, on Channel 7, keep an eye out for the Greer preview, and on WSPA.com, and on our hour-long high school Red Zone season preview show Saturday, August 16th at 7 p.m. Will, great talking to you in this scenario. We've done probably a million interviews over the years. And again, my football world has had Will Young in it for 35 years. So it's a blessing for me.
Yeah, been a long time. And,
and great family.
I've enjoyed the ride.
Yeah, and great family too, because I've obviously got to know your family well over the years. Will Young, thanks so much. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of All Access, this time as we visited with the head coach of the Greer Yellow Jackets.
All Access Pete's Preseason is brought to you by these sponsors.
As the 2025 high school season is upon us in the high school Red Zone, getting ready for some great action, as you probably know, on Channel 7 and the CW62 each night on the news. On weeknights, we're previewing 55 area teams, as well as on our hour-long high school Red Zone season preview special. That's August 16th at 7 p.m. on Channel 7. We'll also rerun that on the CW and on WSPA.com. Find out all about the area teams. At the same time, right here, we're visiting with area head coaches and kind of going deeper into their backgrounds. And Mark Hodge, head coach of the Spartanburg Vikings, kind of join us. First off, you're getting ready for year number 6 at Spartanburg. You talk about time flying. I remember sitting in that conference room with you at Chapman after your great run there when you announced you were making the move. And just like so many coaches that year, you had to come into Spartanburg during COVID, but you've got the program now to where you can really tell your signatures on it. And you're anticipating, I get the impression, having talked to you going into this preseason with some of the guys you have coming back, this could be a pretty nice year for the Vikings, couldn't it?
Yeah, we're very excited about the year coming up. This group of seniors is the first group that's gone through the program uninterrupted. The first couple of years were just so overwhelming and so many obstacles that you didn't, had no idea was coming. The whole world didn't. And so we finally got a group that's stable. Their formative years have been a little more stable, and the program has been more stable. And so we're really excited about what this group's going to do.
So your football journey includes playing at Broome, coaching there, and then heading over to Spartanburg. I know the great Doc Davis had a great influence on you, and then the head coaching eventually began at Carolina, then Chapman, then Spartanburg. But first, take us back for when you were playing for the Broome Centurions. I think Chris Miller was your head coach. You're one of the roughly 50 area guys who either currently is or at one point has been a high school head coach that I covered as a player. So there's that. But when did you know that coaching was going to be your thing?
Yeah, I went to Broome and originally played for Coach Few, and then Coach Miller was the head coach, and both of those guys are really major reasons why I'm in this profession. Just, they were really good to me and during that time, and owe them a lot of credit, a lot of love, a lot of relationships, and so I actually thought I was going to be a chemical engineer and go to Clemson. And, but I let Presbyterian talk me into coming there late in the summer, which was not where I needed to be. So the lesson learned there is if you're not where you're supposed to be, God's going to not let you be comfortable.
Yep.
And so I ended up actually at Upstate was going to be, I thought, a transition semester, but ended up playing baseball there for Coach Dorman, and then ended up my senior year helping out some with Coach Miller and those guys at Broome doing stats and a few other things. And along that line is where I decided that I wanted to coach and teach, and ended up being a math teacher. And when I graduated, I actually had an opportunity to start back at Broome, and I've got to work for some great coaches, Joe Winger and then Bill Owens, and the successes we had there, and then Coach Davis. So just the coaches I've been able to play for and work for are just Hall of Fame guys.
2002 was the Broome team. I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm off a year on that. That was one of the really great non-Big 16 or 4A Division 2 or 3A teams we have in the area. Weren't you guys still 2A that year, or were you 3A?
We were actually 3A.
3A, but what a team. What a team that was.
The 03 year, I think we got beaten maybe the third round, a close game with Clinton. Clinton went on, I think, play for a state championship that year. But a lot of fun there, a lot of, good guys that were part of that group. Coach Fleming's a few years older. He's like my older brother. He's coaching, and Coach Derryberry was our quarterback at the time. And so there's a lot of guys off that team that, still in high school football.
Yeah, when you were playing. And then as a coach, though, I thought you were with Bill Owens on the great Broome team that won a state title. DJ Moore. Yeah. That was an amazing ball club.
Yeah, the 93 team was the Broome team. The team I played on.
Yes, that was a very good team.
2004 team.
2004.
That won the 2A state
at
championship.
Broome.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was with Coach Owens and DJ Moore and that whole crowd. So I think there were 9 Division I athletes on that team.
Amazing. What a ball club.
Pro baseball players to major college basketball players. Right. It was a great little group of kids.
Yep. So were you still at Broome as an assistant, or
I was defense coordinator for that?
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so you were part of that program, as I was pretty sure. And then you go to Spartanburg. And Doc Davis, it was his final few years there, but still great inspiration in your coaching career, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was awesome. Being the first year I was just assistant coach, then Coach Davis the last 2 years I was defense coordinator there. And I thought it was actually some of the years that I got to learn the most, because it was a time where he didn't have some of the best players that he had before, but I thought he did such a really good job of coaching. And then I got a lot of just individual time, because we'd ride to the sub-varsity games together. And so I got to pick his brain and ask questions and get some great insight to why and how he did some things. And, he was unbelievably good to me and just taught me so many, great positive lessons that I've been able to implement a lot into what we do now.
Your first head coaching job at Carolina High, which has had some bumps in the road, but you won 7 games there one year, which is like winning 12 or 13 somewhere else, and that was a great time of growth. You then go to Chapman High, where you won 47 of your last 49 and 2 state titles, and people would say, well, I'm sure Debo Samuel is in the middle of that. Well, Debo Samuel is a great player for you. He was on the front end, obviously an amazing talent also to coach. But what led to the eventual greatness after Debo moved on after a deep playoff run? But what led things to being so good at Chapman High as time went on?
Yeah, working for Coach Owens and Coach Davis, each coach does things remarkably well. So I was able to steal some things that they did. Coach Owens is the best I've seen in getting kids to do what they need to do, even though they don't want to do it. And then Coach Davis is just consistency and just attention to detail. So we were able to take that to Carolina. And when we went to Carolina, it was actually an experiment because, you're still young. And some things you don't know why you do. That's what we've always done. And so we went there and kind of experimented a little bit and figured out there were some things that you have to do, and there were some things we thought that we, could do differently. And
sure.
So learned a whole lot there.
I've heard anecdotes of just teaching kids, tuck your shirt in.
Oh, yeah.
Look right.
And that's where we kind of started our player development program. We put in the professional dress, we put in the academic standards, we put in just different things. And, I was a young father at the time. I had, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and we were looking at the program as what would we want for our own children. And so we started putting in some of these things. And, we were blessed, won 16 games in 3 years. I think they'd won 10 the previous 10. And
yeah.
So we took that to Chapman, and honestly had more coaches. We were very thin at Carolina, and more money, had a community, we had a lot more support structures there. And we just kept building. We just kept taking things that worked and things that we learned and kept applying them. And we got community buy-in and player buy-in and administrative buy-in. And we had a perfect storm. And, when you see these runs, you have a storm of all those things that are just working in your favor. And it was such a great time for us.
You've also played for another state title there as well. So you won a couple, won 47 of the last 49. That when you really got it going, you started the season when you got it going 3-3, and then you won your final 9, and that was 15, I want to say.
Yeah, my son likes to remind me we should have won 5, and he's really right. And honestly, we probably could have won one at Carolina that last year. But, taking kids to where they've never been, you don't totally believe you belong until you've been there.
Yep.
And so, we were blessed to have Debo and Day-Day and Malik and all those guys when we first got to Chapman, and we had some athletes. And our second year, we played for the Upper State Championship, and I think I cost us a state championship because we took the lead.
Yeah, you said against Daniel, you made a mistake in a game. Yeah. And, but again, what you ended up doing there. So now you get hired by one of the iconic programs. And again, on the day we're taping this, I looked on social media. You posted something about how you and your guys at Spartanburg had a lake day and pouring into kids. And it's become an evolving thing with the coach of any team and coaches of any organization being involved more with the kids. And just some of the benefits you've seen of expanding behind just the guy wearing the sweatshirt that says coach on it with a whistle.
Yeah, it goes back to being a father, and so many of our children don't have daily active fathers in their lives. And so you're trying to, fill in a gap there. And honestly, I've been blessed in this game, been an assistant on the state championship team, been a head coach on state championship teams, had players play in the NFL, had players going to be doctors and lawyers, but I've also had player passed away in my arms before. I've had players, do make terrible decisions. Some lost their lives due to it, and so I think through the blessings and the terrible moments, with age comes wisdom, and I have a very mature staff now, and so obviously winning matters, but it's the second most important thing right now. The children being great husbands, fathers, and men is number one, and so that's allowed us to put in some standards, some academic standards, some behavior standards, some opportunities and stuff that actually takes time away from the actual preparation of the game, but we believe more importantly it's going to make better men, and better men do everything else better. And so, that's why we're willing to, I hate to say it this way, but put a kid on the bench when they're not doing things that's going to be great for them and their future successes as husbands and fathers and men. Cam Smith, we suspended him one day for skipping a study hall. And so hopefully our kids understand that they're the most important thing, not the game. Now, the game's very, very important. It is a success and a result-driven business, and unfortunately it's turned into a business even at our level. And but at the end of the day, we're going to make sure that we do as many things as we can to expose kids to opportunities and greatness in their life. And, when they're 45, 50, we want them to be, just better men for being in our program.
And you've been doing things, not only gathering guys together for recreational stuff, but you have them go out and do like little shadow days and that kind of thing. So it's great. Well, let's get back from a football standpoint. How have you evolved as a head coach? You're on the defensive side of the ball as a coordinator. Have you changed your philosophy on how the ball should be moved down the field by the offense?
Well, we were at Chapman. I turned into more of a CEO. Brad McAbee was running the offense and Brandon Mullins was running the defense, and that allowed me to study player development and all these different social and psychological type things that we do with our kids now. And then being a defensive-minded guy, the one thing that I made sure was in our offenses were things that were hard to defend. And so we were, fast-paced and attacked you all areas of the field, horizontally, vertically. Could you pretty much do what we wanted to do. And so I feel like we're getting to that point where we do the same thing now at Spartanburg. And you got to have the players that match too. And so we feel like we have that now. And I've only ever had two coordinators. Both coordinators, Mike Gentry and Brad McAbee on offense, are both on staff now. So every play caller I've ever had is with us. And we've been fortunate with the way those guys have developed our quarterbacks too, because every quarterback that has been a senior starter for me has gone on to play college football. And so I really would argue that we put more onus and more empowerment on our quarterback than anybody else in the state. And,
sure.
and a lot of that's including the colleges too. Cause
wow.
We let our kids change plays, make plays. I feel like we're doing a much better job of coaching if the player, if the young man can make the decision versus relying on us to make the decision. So empowerment is a huge part of our program.
Yep. Yeah, Trey Burke, your quarterback this year, one of those guys already committed to East Carolina, and others will follow. You have one of the most exciting running backs in the state who's just a junior in Trenton Lynch. So exciting things ahead for the Spartanburg Vikings. Mark Hodge getting ready for year number 6, and have a feeling pretty soon, if not this year, another state title or 2 or 3 or more is going to be coming back to the Vikings. Thanks so much for coming and joining us, Coach. Good luck in 2025.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, and God bless, and go Vikings.